I read The Search for the Grail by Svetislav Basara, translated from the Serbian by Randall A. Major. This is a sequel to a book I read about a week and a half ago called The Cyclist Conspiracy. Um, so this is a pair of epistolary novels made up of letters, diary entries, historical documents, various things like that, all pertaining to a secret society called the Evangelical Bicyclists of the Rose Cross. And they're an order of sort of Christian mystics, in the same vein as like Freemasons or Rosicrucians. Obviously, there's a reference in the name of their order to Rosicrucianism. Um, they've been around since the 14th century, and they are obsessed with bicycles, and they actually tried to invent bicycles in the Middle Ages, but they got accused of witchcraft, and some of them burned at the stake. Some of them were exiled to an island in the North Atlantic. So yeah, they really like bicycles. They also can communicate with each other through dreams. um, and they have like a glass cathedral that they built in the dimension of dreams, that every member of the order is able to dream of that cathedral, and when they enter it, they can communicate with other brothers of the order who are dreaming, and that transcends time. Like you could fall asleep in the Middle Ages and go to the glass cathedral and meet somebody from the 21st century. And so through this communication in the cathedral, they have like supernatural knowledge of the future and the past. Uh, so yeah, they like bikes. They communicate with each other through dreams, um, and they're locked in this eternal struggle, which is framed a little differently between the two books. So in the Cyclist Conspiracy, it's the struggle between architects and blacksmiths. And the cyclists come from the blacksmiths. And the idea is that because blacksmiths work with metal, they have this connection to the earth, whereas architects are trying to escape the earth by building all their tall buildings. And they tried to build the Tower of Babel, and God struck it down. And ever since then, they have instead been trying to build one giant city that would encompass all of humanity, and somehow living in this city would sever the connection between humans and God. So that's the architects, and the bicyclists come from the blacksmiths, and the bicyclists exist to oppose the plans of the architects. In the second book, In Search of the Grail, is it of? Yeah, of, not for, In Search of the Grail. Um, the bicyclists are struggling against the librarians. And now the word architects is never used in this book, but it seems like they're the same people as the architects. But the librarians, their thing is they can control all the documents in the world, and they can edit them like remotely. Like they have a copy of everything that's written down in the world, and if they change their copy, it changes the other copy that exists elsewhere in the world. And they use this power to um, shape history to their own goals and their own ideology. And similar to the architects in the first book, they want to build a giant city, and they want everybody to live in the city, and they want it to be this kind of authoritarian government. Um, so where was I going with that? Sorry, I got distracted by the cat. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the plot. Um, I mean, plot. It's you're reading a bunch of documents about these things, or like letters that different characters have written to each other about it. Some of the characters receiving these letters are like a member of the order, but they actually didn't realize they were a member of the order until they started getting the letters, which is kind of a fun idea. Um, Lots of historical figures are referenced. Stalin is a member of the bicyclists, although he's never referred to as Stalin. They use mainly his patronym. He's Joseph Vissarionovich, which means his father's name was Vissarion. Um, and I think at least one time they use also his original Georgian surname, which was Was it Jugashvili? I gotta look that up now because I want to make sure that I know that. But uh, yeah, he's mostly called Joseph Vissarionovich, but it's Stalin. So he's a member. A lot of famous authors are members of the Bicyclists. Yeah, it's a really random list of people. About half of them are Yugoslav, um, which makes sense given that it's a Serbian author. Yeah, who else do I recognize on this list? There's a lot of Romanians as well, not just Yugoslavs, but also Romanians. I remember looking up one of these. He was like a Romanian historian. But yeah, there's Woody Allen, Oscar Wilde, Stephen Hawking, um, George W. Bush, Freddie Mercury. Yeah, so really John Cleese, random list of people here. Um, what was I saying? I'm supposed to have my thoughts organized. I went on a bike ride to organize my thoughts for this. It seemed appropriate, but it doesn't seem to have worked. Uh, yeah. So, um, yeah, basically you're presented with all these documents and like it kind of if you've read The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon, it kind of feels like if you were in the position of Oedipa Maas, the main character in that book, because she's like reading all these things and uncovering this vast conspiracy and kind of losing her mind a little bit, because it's not clear like is this real and like what do these people even believe? What are their goals? Why does this secret society exist? Um, but because this is an epistolary novel, or these are epistolary novels, um, it's like you, the reader, are put in that position, which is really disorienting, but it's a lot of fun. I loved the first book, liked the second book a lot, but didn't quite love it, and I'm not exactly sure why. Um, I will say something really fun about the second book that's much more prominent there than it was in the first book is the metatextuality. Like there's a lot of references in the second book to the existence of the first book. Like this book, not the plot of this book, but the existence of this book, as a document, is a plot point in the narrative of the second book. And the author, Svetislav Basara, is a character in the second book, and he gets initiated into the evangelical bicyclists, sort of as a reward for writing this book. So that's kind of fun. But aside from that, I don't know, it was missing a little bit of the magic of the first book. And I don't know, maybe that's not even a product of the writing or the book itself, but just I mean, I read them back to back, and it is a lot of the same type of stuff, so maybe I was just like slightly burnt out, but I still liked it a lot. Like I think on Goodreads, I think I gave this a 5 and this a 4. Um, and I think I stand by that. Uh, so yeah, I mean, a lot of fun. One thing that I was kind of trying to figure out, and I don't think I ever did, is like, does Svetislav Basara, first of all, does he even have a position on how the audience should feel about the bicyclists? And if he has a position, what is that position? Does he want us to sympathize with them, or are they the bad guys? Or does he not have a position on that? Or is it his position that we should not have a position, and that the bicyclists and their enemies are both kind of bad, and maybe their enemies are worse, but the bicyclists are kind of insane. Maybe that's the point. I don't know. It's very confusing. Um, and probably that confusion is part of what he was trying to accomplish in writing these. And again, like I said, that's the major effect of this is it's like if you were a character in The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon. And Basara is sometimes referred to as the Serbian Thomas Pynchon, so that makes sense. He's got a couple other works translated to English, one of which the English translation just came out this year. And then there's a few that have came out throughout the 2000s and 2010s. But he's very prolific in Serbian, and a lot of it is not translated. So I mentioned in my last video, I think that I'm learning Serbo-Croatian right now, kind of focusing more on Croatian for the moment when differences come up. And there's not a lot of differences, to be honest, but when they come up, I'm kind of focused more on Croatian right now because I'm going to be going on a trip to Croatia in a couple years. But after that trip, I might focus a little more on the Serbian version of the language because I would really like to read more of Basara's work than is currently available in English. I think it's like other than these two, I think there's two other novels available in English by him, and then two short story collections, or it might be three novels and two short story collections. But yeah. Um yeah, this was like a really fortuitous time in my life to pick up these two books. Obviously there's the whole bicycle thing, and coincidentally I've kind of been getting back into biking lately. I used to bike a lot in like middle school and high school. I would bike with my dad on like rail trails on the weekends. Um, and then in college I biked to all my classes, and I would also do some rail trails on the weekend. But I haven't done a whole lot of it the past like 3-ish years, and I want to get back into it this summer. Um, and depending on how much endurance I can build up, I kind of want to try a bike packing trip, just a quick one, like overnight to a campground like 50 miles from my house, maybe at the end of the summer. So we'll see. If I do that, I'll probably make a video about it. Um, but yeah, so that was kind of worked out to read this as I'm getting back into biking. Also, coincidentally, there's a few references to the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, and I'm currently reading the first critique for the first time, um, and having a lot of fun with that. It's everybody says it's really hard, but I've not. I can see why it would be difficult, but I'm enjoying it so far. Um, uh, but yeah, I think that's all the thoughts that I had about these two books. Probably not, but that's all that's coming to mind at the moment. And yeah, I need to finish a few of the big books that I'm in the middle of now, so I probably won't have another video for a while. I don't know, maybe close to a month, but we'll see.